It all started with King George III. To say this man was crazy would be quite the understatement. His coronation took place on September 22nd, 1761, meaning that he had barely been a king when he lost America to our Revolutionary War. It was still his fault, though. King George III placed all kinds of crazy taxes and acts in an effort to control his colonies, like the Stamp Act, which added a tax onto every document, and the Townshend Act, which placed taxes on a whopping 72 types of imported items. Of course, his rule didn't last forever, and the American colonies soon became the United States of America. All we were asking for was better trade and less taxes, but because of a certain stubbornness, we ended up gaining so much more. Our founding fathers worked to ensure prosperity for future generations, and most of this came from how they designed the system that rules us. Our government was designed for the benefit of the people, and Americans should be aware of our power. One of the rights established in our government is the American right to petition for redress. The First Amendment of the Constitution states, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." This line doesn't just sit and look pretty in the Constitution. Every part of it has been put to work. Recent sociopolitical issues call for the third part of that statement, to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We've done it many times by now, especially in the past century. The Civil Liberties Act of 1988 came about as a result of the actions of the United States government during World War II. Executive Order 9066 subjected Japanese Americans living on the West Coast to life in internment camps following the attack on Pearl Harbor. Of course, this was horrendous, and the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, after much protest, gave every Japanese American who survived or descended from a survivor of incarceration $20,000 and a formal presidential apology. Most recently, the redress movement spawned with Richard Rothstein's 2017 book, The Color of Law. This book incited, through various civil rights leaders across the nation, the creation of the official organization following the movement's name in 2022. The Color of Law brought awareness to the upholding of housing segregation in modern law, and combined with the events of the emerging Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 to inspire a desire to address race-based grievances of the past and present. These movements wouldn't be getting anywhere if we weren't utilizing our First Amendment rights. Dr. Martin Luther King's nonviolent, non-cooperative protest gave rise to some of the most effective pressure on legislature in civil rights history, leading to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Our First Amendment set a precedent for us to follow in seeking change, and ignoring it has proven to be equivalent to inaction. Flame wars on the internet aren't going to magically make legislatures seek change. Lazy dissatisfaction isn't magically going to help marginalized communities gain freedom. Performative activism of the 21st century won't change anything in comparison to the actions we've already taken. What can help us to do that is to read what James Madison wrote in the First Amendment, and to commit to a future where we utilize one of the most valuable parts of American tradition, the Constitution, to change our society for the better. King George III's rule of tyranny led to the creation of a country that prioritizes freedom and individual independence. Our government was created to be just as human as the people who made it. Accepting our freedom means accepting the ability to change, an ability which has become ingrained into American tradition. If we, as a society, recognize what we have done for our government, only then can we recognize what our government can do for us. Equality is absolutely necessary to freedom, and we can't have that equality if we don't have government that is built to acknowledge it. King George III would definitely be jealous if he saw how America was today. A society flourishing with the art and voices and protest and movement of thousands, because we know we can. We know we have a right to make change in our government. Not many other countries have a right to say the same thing as Americans. Our nation enjoys self-expression unlike many others. All that we're missing is meaningful action behind the outrage that many of us are feeling today. Take advantage of your power and use the freedoms of the First Amendment to do what you believe is right.